We are continuing on our journey through Hilchot Shabbat, and in discussion of Hilchot Dash, we started the discussion of milking animals on Shabbat, also using different nuts, especially when you talk about peanuts with the thin brown shell around it. What is considered dash? What's not considered dash? Because dash itself is the melacha that would separate the grain out of its outer shell. So is that considered to be the same thing as, when you want to eat peanuts and you're gonna separate the brown casing? And how about the tolada of dash, which is chaliva? We mentioned milking is a direct tolada of dash, is a isur deoraita. So we started discussing this, and two important pieces about eating on Shabbat, different things that have a casing. Imagine to yourself, you have the green peas that you want to eat, and they are in their sharbit. So mutar lefarech sharbitin shel kitniot mevushalim. It's mutar if they are cooked like that, and this is the process of you directly eating them, not that you are preparing them for future and so on. That would be mutar to do. La'altar, as long as you're doing it for immediate use, not for leaving it for afterwards, preparing it. Mutar lekalef Shabbat botnim af mikilipatam achitonam. You could also separate the peanuts from the outer shell, and it's mutar to open pistachios also from their outer shell, to break that open and eat them. All of that as you are eating them. Ve'en bazeh isur mishum dash. It's not the isur of dash. Keshem shemutar leshaber klipat shekedim. Just like you could break open the outer klipa, the outer shell of almonds and eat them. That would be also you getting into the food. For getting the food, you need to break the outer shell, and that would be mutar, because all of that is considered eating. Now, we hinted before that this depends on what processes are done usually in the production, the mass production of these items on the field. What process is considered the process that is done usually on the field as part of the preparation for the marketplace, and what's usually done at home. So, opening the pistachios is done at home usually. That's not part of dash. Same is with, the botnim, the peanuts. That you eat them, that's how you eat them. They're kept in that dark brown shell because of freshness, whatever it is. People usually, just crumble that and eat it at a time. And therefore, that's not considered part of the melacha of dash. Now, cows, especially dairy cows, they are fed in a certain way, and kept in a certain way. And their diet and their life situation conditions are all processed in such a way that they can produce the maximum amount of milk per day. It's a whole chokhmah. It's sometimes hard to believe the amounts of milk that every one of these dairy cows could produce. But there's a catch. The problem is they are positioned to be milked every single day, high levels of milk. And now on Shabbat, if you don't milk them, they will be in tremendous pain, aside from the fact that it also affects their health, and it affects their productivity of how much milk they are going to be producing the next few days after that. So if you have a behemah that is in pain, in sar, from excess amount of milk that is in their udder, they're engorged in that way that they're going to be now hurt from not being milked on Shabbat, mutar lomar lenochri she'achlovota. Chacham Ovadia holds that it's mutar to tell directly to a goy to milk them, shemikevan dikayim alam, because we hold, and this is a Gemara in Masechet Shabbat Daf Kuf Chavchet Amud Bet, Sar Balachayim Deoraita. We hold that Sar Balachayim is Deoraita. This is a sugya also in Masechet Bava Metzia Daf Lamed Bet. The maskara of the sugya seems to be that inflicting pain on an animal is a Isur Deoraita. And this is the first ones who ever talked about and were concerned about animal rights, so to speak, what the world now calls animal rights. It's not animal rights. We don't have rights in Chumash, in Judaism. We're not focused on rights. We're focused on obligations. Instead of you having to sue me, I have to be considerate for you. As the Torah obligates us to be sensitive to other people's rights, not for them to demand it. A society that's focused on demanding your rights, again, it's the same thing. It's just the way you say it. If you focus on that, then you'll be, as long as you're not watching or you can't catch me, I'll do it. But if the focus is on us to be sensitive, even when nobody's watching, nobody's looking, you'll have a Gan Eden, a tremendous utopian society. But that's for hashkafic talk. But as it may, both in Masechet Shabbat Kuf Chavchet Amud Bet, both in Metzia Daf Lamed Bet, Sar Balachayim is the Oraita. Inflicting pain on an animal is a biblical prohibition. You can't do it. You have to be sensitive to the well-being of even animals. So it says the halacha over here. Therefore, shapir dachir shvu damira lochli. It overrides a avera derabanan of amira la'akum, and therefore you could tell them to do it. Now, what if you don't have a goy? What if you don't have a goy? You're there with your family. Everyone is Jewish. Then mutar leIsrael lachalov be'emto al gabe karka. Then you can do it. You can still milk the animal, but you cannot use the milk. It has to be going leibud immediately. So you could just milk it on the ground, on the floor. You're losing the milk, but you are preventing the sar balachayim. You're preventing the pain from the animal. The milk this way is going to be lost, obviously, but you are saving the animal from the pain. We know the halacha is sar balachayim is deoraita. או שיחלוב לתוך כלי שיש בו נפת או ליזול, or you could just milk into a bucket, or the bucket has benzene or other items that make the halav immediately not edible, and you have to trash it afterwards. Just don't want to dirty the floor of the barn. Fine, you could do it in a bucket, but the bucket has to be in a way that makes the renders the milk not edible immediately. Immediately becomes milkulkal. Put some soap in there, what?
What's the reason? Why can't milk be used?
Because now it's going to be melacha she'ena sricha legufa. Turns it to drabanan. A Shabbat transgression is only a biblical transgression if you need the outcome, right? So if you are keeping the milk, you're going to be using the milk somehow. That makes it a biblical prohibition to milk the animal. But if you don't need the milk, you're just doing it for a separate reason, side reason of the sar of the be'emah, then it's a rabbinic prohibition. Rabbinic prohibition is still asur, but in the case of sar balachayim, it will be overridden by the isur of sar balachayim. Fine. Says the halacha over here. ויש מתירים לאכול בתוך כלי שיש בו אוכל באופן שרוב החלב נבלע באוכל. There are those who are a little bit more lenient to milk into food items that the milk is going to be immediately swallowed, so you see no liquid in the bucket. The milk is swallowed and absorbed in the other food. Again, Chacham does not rely on that, but he does write that if a person relies on that, they have what to rely on. So that's as far as milking. Again, we don't. On a regular basis, we don't deal with these things in the city life. You can't tell a Jewish boy, a girl, that are below the age of mitzvot, if they're bar bat mitzvah, can you tell them to do isurim on Shabbat? They will become your Shabbat goy, right? They're not bar mitzvah, they're not bat mitzvah. Well, what do you want, right? Says the halacha is asur lama. You cannot tell them to do any isur d'oraita, for sure not. And again, this is isur d'oraita. So to tell a minor to do a isur d'oraita, of course, that would be asur for you to do, because it says the pasuk, it's drasha in the Gemara, lo ta'aseh kol melacha, ata ubetecha, bincha ubitecha. You should not do any work, not only you, but your son and your daughter as well. So it says it explicitly in the Chumash that you are obligated to see to it that your son and your daughter, who are minor, they keep Shabbat. The drasha of this pasuk in Mechilta is, Elu banav u'mnotav haketanim. This is talking about your minor sons and daughters, right? It's explicit drasha that is mentioned in the Midrash. It's your obligation to see to it that they keep Shabbat. So therefore, he certainly cannot tell them to be mechal Shabbat. The adult sons and daughters, that's not your obligation, that's their obligation, right? So obviously, when he says bincha bitecha, he's talking about the minor ones that is still under your wing. You can't tell your friend's daughter and son either, because again, that's also included in your obligation. We learned this in the Mishnah in Masechet Shabbat. If a minor comes to extinguish a fire, there's a fire on Shabbat, a minor comes to do it on his own, even, we don't listen to him. Because his Shabbat is on you, right? His is an obligation on you to see to it that he keeps Shabbat, and therefore, even though that he's doing it on his own without your directive, you still have to stop him, because you have to make sure he keeps Shabbat as well. So therefore, it's not an etzah to tell. You see, some people will tell their kids to carry on Shabbat their talit back to the shul, right? Put aside if it's a good chinuch or not, or open soda cans for them, right, on Shabbat. Put aside if it's a good chinuch. That's very debatable, right? We have to talk about that in a whole separate talk. But as far as halacha is concerned, that's a different story, because there are those who say for you is mutar to even bring it, right? I'm just being machmir. I don't hold mikar din is asur, right? I'm a little bit more machmir. So I have the luxury of having little minor kids that they could do something that be'etzim really is mutar, but now I'm not doing it myself. Fine, is what to talk about. Or opening the cans, the same thing, mikar din is mutar. If I want to be a little bit more stringent, that we could hear. We could hear how that would work. Asur Yisrael lachalovet b'yom Shabbat. One last halacha, let's do here. It's prohibited for a Jew lachlovet b'yom Shabbat to milk his own animal on Shabbat, even if you are doing it in a different way. Now, normally speaking, when you do a melacha in a strange way, in a not common way, that would make it the Rabbanan. That would knock it down a notch. Now, therefore, an argument could have been made that, well, you're telling me that the Rabbanan for Sar Bar Chaim is mutar. So how about if I do it backhandedly, I milk backhandedly, right? And that would be the Rabbanan, and Basar Bar Chaim would make it mutar. The halacha is now you cannot do that. If you use, let's say, your I don't know if this even works, your left hand, right? I think those people who used to milk animals, they used to actually use both of their hands. If I'm mistaken, they would actually do both hands. I'm not sure if they're using the left hand. I mean, that's what it says over here. You use it with your left hand. That would have an assumption, be built on an assumption that left hand will be a shinui. Fine, debatable, but nevertheless. The left hand usage is not a thing, because that would be in every melacha will be asur whether you do it with right hand or left hand. It will be chayav. Chutz mi melechet haktiva. Aside from writing, writing is very, hand specific, so to speak, right? So you have a dominant hand, and you only write with that. But all the other melachot, right? It will be both with your right and left hand, and will be the same. So therefore, just like writing it, doing it with your left hand is not going to be a shinui over here. So it will be still asur, and we'll talk about the machines, the milking machines in the next shiur B'ezrat Hashem, because nowadays usually commercial milking is not done with hands; it's done with suction of very precision machines that they have sensors and all those things. And all you have to do is kind of like bring it close, and it latches on, so to speak, to the other. That will become a question that we will deal with and we'll discuss in the next shiur. Hazaku Baruch.